Hello, everybody. Welcome to an emergency podcast edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me and all the stuff we're doing here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram at Hawk Blogger, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And if you want ad-free audio, patreon.com/Hawk Blogger. And got my good friend Jeff Simmons with me as some surprising news came out just a little while ago. A report from ESPN's Seth Wickersham, combined with some help from our own Brady Henderson of ESPN, that the Seattle Seahawks will be put up for sale following the Super Bowl. We'll get into all the implications of this and reactions to it. Jeff, first of all, welcome. How you doing, my friend?
I'm okay, man. This caught me off guard. I'm not going to lie. I thought the Vikings GM was going to be the bombshell of the day, or I was trying to figure out who the Seahawks coaching is going to be next year. Yeah, I'm happy I can talk to you because I'm very surprised with what's going on right now.
Yeah, so let's catch people up on what we know and what we don't. What we know, and like even before this report, we knew that when Paul Allen passed away, as part of the trust that the teams were left in, he left instructions to sell both the Trailblazers and the Seahawks, and for the proceeds from that sale to go to charity. So we knew this was going to happen at some point. We also knew that there was a specific clause in the deal with the state, I believe it was. I'm not sure if it was the county or the state, about a specific timeline for when the Seahawks would have a 10% tax essentially on the sale. The proceeds would go to the state of Washington. I'm now verifying that. And they've now passed that deadline. So that no longer is a consideration. It was always kind of known they weren't going to probably sell before that deadline passed. We also know that the Trailblazers were put up for sale earlier, well, now last year, and that sale is in the process of going through to I think Tom Condon, if I remember correctly, is the name of the guy. Yes, Tom Dundon. Sorry, not Condon. Tom Dundon. Who was buying the Trailblazers for a little over $4 billion. And now the report is that the Seahawks will be sold afterwards, after the Super Bowl. And one thing I'll just share is I had I think a pretty well-placed source that the expectation was the Seahawks were not going to be sold this season or after this season.
Okay, hold on a second, Brian. Hold on.
Okay.
So Ian Rappaport just put out a statement from the Paul G. Allen spokesman saying, "We don't comment on rumors and speculation, and the team is not for sale. We've already said that will change at some point per Paul's wishes, but I have no news to share. We are focused on winning the Super Bowl and completing the sale of the Portland Trailblazers in the coming months."
So is that new news?
It could be PR. It's likely PR, but we got to put that out there to be fair.
Yeah, no, I 100% want it. So your interpretation of that new report, or at least the statement, is what?
They're trying to keep the story quiet, and they're trying to hope this doesn't linger over the team. And they were probably hoping this was be done behind the scenes. They're probably not happy the story got out.
I see. So you know, the fact that they say in that statement that the team is not for sale, that to me is just like a statement of current status. It's not a statement that the team will not be sold. It's also not a statement that the reports that are out there are untrue. It is basically saying that they say we don't comment on rumors or speculation. So maybe they're trying, to your point, to kind of cast some doubt about this. But I don't know, man. Like, we can kind of react and share our perspectives on it. It would make some sense to do a deal right now like that. So I'll get back to what I was saying before, which is when the Trailblazers sale came through, I checked in with some of the folks that I know that would have some information along this, and the expectation was that the Seahawks would not be sold. So I'm pretty confident in that information, and if that was the case, then then something's changed. And I don't know what that might have been. It might be that the Seahawks have succeeded so much. It might have been a number of factors, but this seems like it would be a new direction from where they had been previously. So, what's your initial reaction, assuming that this is true?
A little sadness, a little fear, and really discomfort. Someone who's covered professional football, and I am a huge Seahawks fan, and I do follow the league as well, the Seahawks. The number one thing most fans, and I'm not trying to like look down on anyone when I'm saying this, it's just the truth of the reality is the number one thing most fans don't understand is the impact of the owner in professional football, especially professional sports, but especially professional football. And we've seen some of the smartest businessmen buy teams. People have done billions of dollars worth of equity they've built up, and they realize what a challenge this is. And they don't realize there's been times where like the Cleveland Browns, their scouting staff has done all this work on a draft pick, and the owner comes in. They says, you're drafting this guy. Dan Snyder took what was once the Washington, used to be the Redskins. They were the most proud franchise in the 80s. Joe Gibbs, they won multiple Super Bowls. Dan Snyder tore that organization down from the top. Hell, we have Jerry Jones, who has been as successful as the Hells. He's the GM of the team at this point. So a lot of people will blame, like, why did the Browns make that Deshaun Watson trade? I think we know where that came from. That came from the owner. And David Tepper, for example, who was a brilliant private equity guy, done really well in his career. He took 3 years of just insanely erratic decisions. It feels like they've stabilized a bit now, but he's a brilliant business guy, and he just took a long time. They're not used to their businesses not succeeding. And so the Allens have been so stable for so long. Everyone knows what Paul's done for the franchise, saving the team from being moved, building the stadium. And then now that we've got, like, I was thinking the other day, even before this came out, like, Russell Wilson requested a trade. I mean, not requested a trade, requested that John Schneider and Pete Carroll got fired a few years ago. And a lot of newer owners, Jody was pretty new at the time, were sided with the quarterback. And Jody, for one of the best things she did is she stuck with John and she stuck with Pete at the time. And now they end up hiring Mike McDonald. And what makes me uncomfortable, that's just sorry for the preamble there, but the Allens have been so stable for so long. This has been a world-class organization. I know there's been questions about like cash flow and things like that since Jody took over, but what I've loved about the stability they've built with John taking over the franchise, Mike, Chuck Arnold, all the people in the franchise that have just been stable. New ownership can just be, it's going into the abyss, really. And I don't know how it works with the estate or in the will with Paul. Are they vetting for who's going to stay at a football ops? Are they vetting for the most money? It just is such a world into the abyss that Seahawks fans haven't had to deal with. And there's been rumors for years about Jeff Bezos, and I don't know enough, but the fact that football's been able to do football things and ownership's done their thing it's been one of the most stable franchises in the NFL. And again, we've seen some situations where there's been great owners. Baltimore Ravens guy came in and really stabilized a pretty nasty situation. But we've seen a lot of bad situations, and that honestly freaks the hell out of me.
Yeah, I think that's all valid. And you know, it's always ironic because when I was pushing that I thought Jody Allen should raise the 12 flag for the NFC Championship, the amount of pushback I got, I was shocked. Like, shocked is probably the wrong phrase, but a lot of people are like, oh, she says she hasn't done anything. Like, why would she do it? And some of it to me was just flat misogyny, but some of it's just like, you know, I don't think they really understand the choices that she could have made versus the ones that she did, and how much she is the reason that Pete Carroll's not here, that John Schneider stayed. She was part of the hiring group that hired Mike McDonald. You know, she's been setting budgets that allowed them to spend money on people like Pete Carroll to not work here. That a lot of owners that aren't just kind of proxies wouldn't want to spend money on someone that's not going to work for them. And so there's a lot of things that I think she's done that have been great. And to your point about stability, I think the Allens have been really, really good for, like, it's been the most prosperous period of any Seattle sports franchise, and really any Pacific Northwest sports franchise ever. Like, it just is. The Seahawks have been the winningest team in the NFC West since they moved. They have gone to more Super Bowls than any other team in the NFC West. They hopefully will find out soon if they win the most Super Bowls out of that group over that time. It's just been very good. And obviously Lumen Field has become a historic landmark, essentially, not only for Seattle, but across sports. So there's a lot of things that they've done that, Paul in particular, that are I think are going to stand the test of time. And you don't know who buys, how they will behave. And I will say this, as I always do, we're going to keep this about sports. We're going to leave politics out of this. If you've got feelings about Amazon or tech or Microsoft or any of that stuff, save it. I don't want it in chat. I don't want to go there. But I will say that a lot of billionaires are by nature not going to be as predictable, and they're not going to be as in touch with what's going on, and they're probably going to be there's the chance that they could be a Dan Snyder type owner, or that they could be a Jerry Jones type, like someone who gets too involved, or doesn't treat people well, or doesn't mesh well with John Schneider. Like, there's definitely a potential for it to go the wrong way. I'll say this though, Jeff, like, there's also the potential for it to go the right way.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
There's a potential that you get an owner that is really invested and will really set the team up for success, and will invest in the facility and in the people and let them do their jobs. We just don't know.
And that's what I mean by the abyss. I'm not saying you're automatically going to get a bad owner like the guy who owns the Browns right now, where it's just pure erratic. It could be great. Like the Ravens owner took over and it's been one of the most brilliant, and he's the one who made them and made great hirings and things like that. There's a lot of potential for good here. They could become even better. Their values are going to be very high, so they're going to have to attract a very unique candidate. But I think what just freaks me out is we don't know. This could go any way. I don't know how the vetting process works. I don't know if it's a money-driven thing. I know Denver had a conglomerate of people take over their ownership group. I'm sure a lot of people are going to start putting money together. And the thing I'm just confused about really is the timing. How does this story get out? And I've seen people in the chat going after Seth Wickersham and Brady. And Wickersham, I think, has Boston ties. They're like, is this a Patriots thing? I see people going at Brady. Like, Brady's not the one who decides if this story comes out or not. It's an editor-driven thing. If they thought this would cause problems, I don't think you can sit on a story this big if you have it. I don't think we should be attacking Seth Wickersham, who was our first guest on Real Hawk Talk, by the way, when he did a bombshell about the breakup of the Seahawks when the LOB started to get cut and removed from the team. But the timing of this is wild to me. Just why is this coming out a week before the Super Bowl? Why are they selling now? Is it just to maximize value? Isn't the money just being donated to charity? Like, it's a very hard thing to put your head around. It's just a little unfortunate because this is going to be the story of Super Bowl week. Not the game. This is going to be lingering around the team all week. This is going to be at every Mike McDonald press conference, any John Schneider availability. I doubt like Sam Darnold could have much. It's been here a year. I doubt even like if you saw the clip of him talking to Jody Allen on stage, it was so funny. It was just so weird. She got so excited to talk to him and he was so awkward about it. It was amazing. But yeah, the timing of this is peculiar. Like, we could have wished this could have waited 2 weeks. I just hope, I don't think it's going to impact like their game, but nothing is more valuable. The owner is the most important person in the whole building. And there's Schneider, there's McDonald. The owner is everything. And so it's just the idea of this much uncertainty where the Seahawks have just got to this point of pure stability. They've have their coach, their GM just won executive of the year. It's a real wrench into what felt like the most stable the franchise has almost ever been.
Yeah, let's reset for people that are just coming in because chat is late. Some people are just coming in and they're telling us stuff we've already talked about. So that's a sign that we need to reset. There's a report that's come out from Seth Wickersham of ESPN. He got some help from Brady Henderson, but this is largely a Seth Wickersham report. I already checked in with Brady about that. And that the Seahawks are going to be sold after the Super Bowl. And keep in mind, the teams, both the Trailblazers and the Seahawks, were in a trust that Jody Allen was a trustee for, and that Paul Allen left instructions that the teams were to be sold and that the proceeds would be donated to charity. And so that is the report that's coming out. There is, since that time, there has been a statement released by the Paul G. Allen, trust or organization, that the team, I'll read it word for word so we can all have the same information there, is that they do not comment. We don't comment on rumors or speculation, and the team is not for sale. We've already said that will change at some point per Paul's wishes, but I have no news to share. Our focus right now is on winning the Super Bowl and completing the sale of the Portland Trailblazers in the coming months. So yes, we do know of both reports, and we'll say this as well, that both Jeff and my interpretations of the statement from the Paul G. Allen Foundation does not refute that the team will be sold after the Super Bowl. What it says is the team is not for sale and that they don't comment on rumors and speculation. There's a big difference between saying it's not for sale and saying the report is false. There are no plans to sell the Seahawks anytime soon. So it was well worded by, PR. Like, that's how you'd write that thing. I don't think that means that they're not going to be sold or that Seth Wickersham's article is incorrect or report. I don't think it guarantees that his report is correct. We're just telling you what we know and interpreting. I also have seen a bunch of people in chat saying, Jody Allen, is she just being greedy? She gets nothing for this. This is the money, the proceeds for this go to charity. So this is not her trying to make money. I've seen questions about, like, does this mean that the team is being moved? There are no indications that the new owner, it would be so stupid of any new owner to move a Super Bowl team in one of the best home field advantages in the league in a financially prosperous situation and have them move. I think that is ludicrous. I think that's a waste of breath. We're not going to spend time on that. So if you're concerned about that, I don't think there's any reason to be. Jeff, I'll pause there. Do you see it any differently?
No, I see it the exact same way. Whoever's in corporate communications or understands corporate communications could probably get a sense of what that statement is. I think you could have really refuted it and kind of taken shots a little more. And that sounds like, kind of reminds me of when Nick Saban said, I'm not leaving the NFL, and he was at Alabama pretty quickly. But I don't think a sale will happen that quickly. I see it the exact same way. I don't think Seth Wickersham, who's got a pretty good track record of pretty good information, would whiff on a story that big. I just can't see that.
Yeah. And as further evidence about the moving thing, there was a lot of questions about the Blazers. Are they going to get moved after this sale? And the man who's buying the Blazers, again, I always keep forgetting his name, Tom something. Anyway, he has a track record of keeping the team that he's purchased. I think he bought the Carolina someone or other, keeping them in the place where they're from and not moving them. And my understanding is that was part of the reason that they were able to come to an agreement, is the plan to keep them in Portland. Now, does that mean that a new owner might not try to leverage this into some public to public deal on, stadium renovations or like something like that? Possibly, but it makes very little business sense, and it makes very little other sense why somebody would purchase a team that is thriving, both financially and on the field, and move them. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know that the NFL would even want that to happen, given the way that Seattle kind of fits into the overall landscape. So I don't think that's, I'm not going to spend time on this show talking about it. If other people want to speculate, fine. I think it's ludicrous. I think there's 0% chance that that's going to happen. What I do think it's worth just spending a little bit of time on, Jeff, is, and we're going to wade into this a little bit. I know chat's going to probably flip out and everyone's got strong opinions on all these people. I'm going to go there anyway. I think Jeff Bezos is a name that we've talked about before, has expressed interest in owning a NFL franchise, obviously has ties to the area, although he has moved. He's down in Florida now. Do you think that that's is that one of the names that comes to mind for you?
There's been chatter about that in like league circles. I saw one of the national reporters, I think it was Jonathan Jones from CBS, bring it up right away. And I think Bezos was pretty involved in the sale of the Commanders a few years ago. I think a group led by Josh Harris kind of outbid him pretty good. But that's been a lingering connection for years. When there was a lot of uncertainty of when Jody was going to sell the team, I think that's been the first name that, and I don't know his ties to the area as well as you guys and people who live in Seattle, but from my understanding, he's in Florida right now. But he obviously has an obvious connection. Amazon's one of the biggest businesses, and Seattle's been the home of that for years. So that is an obvious connection. There's some other names I wonder about. Steve Ballmer, who's an obvious tie to the Allen family, and he's been a mixed bag as the owner of the Clippers. He's been in some hot water over the last few years from some of Pablo Torre's reporting on Kawhi Leonard, but he's a guy with a large pool of money. There's an obvious connection to the Allen family. Very big pusher of the NBA coming back to Seattle. I don't know if he has the cash flow or if he has the ability to own another team. He's been very involved in basketball operations, but I think football's a very different beast. We're one star, but I wonder about him. But yeah, there's been a lot of, in the last few years, private equity groups, and people they used to not let private equity into the NFL at all. It used to have to be individually funded, but I'm sure there's a lot of people. Denver's got purchased by a lot of the Waltons, and that was a big sale from the Bolin Trust in the last few years. And so it's a we don't know where this is going to go. I'm sure a lot of players are going to get involved. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of groups. If this team comes available with this stadium and this ability to pool money together and print cash, I'm sure there's other Seattle-related owners I can't even think of right now. But, yeah, I think Bezos is going to be the one that a lot of people are going to start with.
You mentioned those two. I'm curious, honestly, I've not put a ton of thought into this, but like Mark Cuban's another name that I just wonder about. I don't know how much interest he has in this kind of thing. Anything you've heard along those lines?
Yeah, Cuban's been one of the best owners in the NBA. He got out because I don't think things were trending the way he wanted with the league, and he would be a fantastic owner. He's been really good at just funding the team. He's very committed, but he's not involved. And it's hard to know what's real and what's not. But I don't obviously know enough about who these reporters are. People are getting mad that I'm talking about Seth Wickersham positively. It's not because he was a guest on our show, guys. I've read Seth's stuff for years. His whole thing is investigative journalism. He did ESPN the magazine. Let's not turn on Seth or Brady. Let's figure out if this is real or not. And yeah, I imagine there's going to be a ton of bidding for a franchise with this kind of magnitude.
Yeah, and I mean, chat's a little unhinged right now, I gotta say. So I'm gonna turn chat off, so we're not broadcasting all of those comments. But again, I will just reiterate: I keep seeing people come in and saying that Bob Condotta is now put on the Times. The Seahawks are not for sale. I'm gonna just say again. The statement that was released does not refute the report. It simply says that they are not for sale now. It does not say anything about the report being false or that the Seahawks will not be sold after the Super Bowl. So it's up to everybody to decide. You can absolutely decide that statement from the foundation is proof that they're not going to be sold and that the Seth Wickersham report is false. None of us know for sure. Feel free to have that interpretation. That is not my interpretation at all. It did not move me an inch on the Seth Wickersham report. I don't think that report comes out from Seth Wickersham without there being something behind it. I think a report that's just a bombshell. And for them to put that out there right now, when there's been zero conversation going on about this anywhere. You and I are all over the place, Jeff. I haven't heard a single thing about this. My tendency is to believe that this is real and that this is going to happen. Now exactly when after the Super Bowl, don't know, but that's my interpretation. And again, people can have their own, but that's mine. Where are you with what you've heard so far?
I just don't see why a story like that would get out. Why would a story like that leak unless I'm not putting on my tinfoil hat and saying Robert Kraft is trying to cause a distraction for the Seahawks, but it's hard for me not to come to the same conclusion as you. Like, why would when a story leaks, there's usually a strategic reason for it. I think that's more in the league with player agents and teams. This seems like investigative journalism. And I tend to believe that's real. And I know the statement's obviously going to refute it, but I think from a business perspective, I think that's pretty logical. I think that gives them some leverage and just some. I think they were obviously going to come out and say that.
Someone's asking me to buy the team. I do not have $6 to $7 billion to offer, and sorry about that. Honestly, if I did, yeah, I think I'd buy the team, but I don't think that's something we need to go deep on. I'll just say this again in chat, and if I have to, I will. I'm seeing some borderline racist comments. I'm seeing some strong political stuff. I'm seeing stuff about Jeff Bezos as an employer at Amazon. We're talking football here, folks. And if you want to talk about that, go somewhere else. Like we're not going to get into every triggery topic here. We're going to talk about football, and we're going to talk about the implications for the Seahawks. So please save those comments for some other chat somewhere else. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this, Jeff. What do you want in an owner? Forget who. What do you want in an owner? What are the characteristics of a good owner?
Someone that lets the football operations act as football operations. A bit of more hands off of an owner. I don't want an owner dictating football personnel decisions. I want someone that wants to invest in the families of the team. I want someone to invest in their employees. Most of all, I want someone that is going to invest back in the franchise and they care about the city. But I think most of all, I want someone that lets the football people be football people. And all of the worst owner stories I've heard are when owners get very controlling over. Like, there's a lot of times over the years where these front offices and coaches have been ripped on for this draft pick, ripped on. And the stories that have come out later, or the stories that I've heard in the league, have been like, there was nothing we can do. Like, Dwayne Haskins was a pick of the Washington Redskins at the time, or the football team, whatever they were. And the GM and the coach got ripped on for it. From what I understand, the owner said, we need to draft a quarterback. This is the top quarterback. We're taking this guy. This team did months of scouting, months. And after all that, the owner comes out and says, this is who I want. Can you say no to your boss if they say that to you? The Browns drafted Johnny Manziel because a homeless guy told the Browns owner that they wanted Johnny Manziel, and he demanded they take him. And look, I want an owner that has a great relationship with the football people, hires people he trusts to do their job, and when they need ownership things, advocating at the league level, funding upgrades in the stadium, funding upgrades. That's what I want. I do not want a heavy-handed personnel owner. Even the Bills, who've become like a way more stable franchise. You saw what the owner did in that press conference the other day, where he just leaked out a story ripping on a current player to make the GM look like that. Was so embarrassing for what's been a proud turnaround of that franchise since they bought it. And so I don't want the heavy-handed personnel people who want to be Dan Snyder, Jimmy Haslam, even David Tepper for a few years. What the Allens have done have been great. They've asked the right questions. They've been involved, but they're not making draft picks in the room. And that's the stuff that scares me for years.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the good stuff there. Specific to the Seahawks right now, if you're like you think about activist investors as a concept, these are folks that come in and they don't just want to invest in a company and let it thrive. They have specific things that they want to do. They want to get their fingers into the business. John Schneider had a really good, subtle comment yesterday at his press conference about basically saying that we're fortunate to be allowed to run the organization this way.
Exactly. And
that means like football first decisions, that they get to make a lot of these choices, that he has a strong relationship with ownership, and that they have the right kind of people and culture, and they have an owner that cares. Like Jody Allen's instruction to John Schneider and to the new coach was to sustain the culture that they've built in the organization when Pete Carroll left. And that's not what a lot of owners care about. So that's unique. But in addition to investing in like the facilities and the people and all that kind of stuff, it would be to be able to have restraint and say John Schneider and Mike McDonald, they're working. I don't need to come in here and fix it. Like, I don't need to do that. But if I can fuel their growth and fuel their success, that's what I want to do. One area that I think could be interesting here is if the person does have tech background and quality tech background. I think a huge part, I'm not even thinking, it is going to be the future of the NFL, how good you are at building predictive models, how good you are at leveraging technology to help analyze player, like both on the player development, player identification for draft, and for health, and for game planning, and for fourth down decision. Like, there's a lot that's going to separate the haves from the have-nots over the next 10 years in terms of the technology side. And as much as I think John Schneider's amazing at so many things, I don't think that's his strength. I think that Mike McDonald is good there, but I would guarantee that he would like to make more progress and have someone else work with Brian Ayers, who's the guy inside, to help with some of those things. So that would get me excited if there was someone like, hey, we're going to get you the best analytics and modeling organization in the NFL. And that's going to, like, if an owner wants to come in and that's their thing, that could be a great addition, a complementary addition to what the team already has.
Yeah, I think me and you were both struck last year when we heard the Ravens GM, Eric DaCosta, interview with Todd McShay, and he went through their predictive model. And Brian, I know from your background in tech, and I've been around sports people my whole life, so I'm used to kind of hearing like a different caliber of answer than you probably are. I think we were both like, our eyes were open from that. Like, who's actually doing that? And then you compare that to other teams that are run like the Stone Ages, and they're making draft picks like the Bengals are, where they use like media guides. And again, like I keep pointing out the worst examples, but I think you're right. There needs to be more time on the potential positive of finding a more different owner. And again, the Allens have been so good, and so Seahawks have been the most as stable of the team. But yeah, more technology and seeing some of the things that some of the more advanced owners can do, that would be really exciting. Because again, and this is just how I think we've learned in this playoffs, but I start worrying about being like an owner like the Bengals, where they don't spend money on families, and they don't spend money, or the Cardinals, who have the sneaky, one of the worst owners in the league. But there are a lot of great owners out there, and the Seahawks at this value, I think, are going to attract a very special kind of candidate. And so if anyone gets the chance, go listen to that interview from Eric DaCosta last year, where I think it was on the Tom McShay show from the Combine.
Yes.
That answer was brilliant, and it showed why he's been so successful, and the Ravens have been such a good drafting team, although they might have got that Nicky Manwari thing a little wrong. But that's what Brian's talking about. That's where the league is going. And I know Mike is very apt to talk in those kind of dimensions. And it wasn't surprising he worked for that organization. So yeah, I would say that's probably not John's strength. John comes from the old Green Bay guys. He's a pure scout. One of the things that the NFL loves about John is he scouts a lot more than other GMs. I think pairing him with that kind of impact would be a really exciting combination.
Yeah, I think that would be the number one thing that I'd want from a new owner. Number two thing I'd want is heavy investment in the facilities, heavy investment in the stadium, heavy investment in sports science and like training and anything to keep the players healthier. Put a bigger electrical substation next to the 49ers facility if you can do it. Like, whatever. Like, I'm looking for a guy, like somebody who wants to come in and augment what's already working as opposed to upset the apple cart, right? I think that's where we both are. I'll say this one more time, because I see the chats about this, that people are saying it's confusing what's going on with the different reports. You got to put yourself in the team and the ownership situation right now. What is their goal? Their goal is to try to tamp down this report and keep the focus on the football game, the Super Bowl, like the thing that they are at. So it is in the ownership's interest. There's no benefit. Like, they don't need to drive interest in the sale of the team. There'll be plenty of interest as soon as they let people know that it's for sale. Their goal is to essentially try to quiet this report. If they wanted to actually quash this report completely,
They could have.
They could have said there is no truth to the report that's out there. The Seahawks are not for sale, and they will not be for sale in the foreseeable future. They could have said that. They did not say that. So it is a perfectly crafted statement to walk the line of saying, let's keep the focus on the game. The team is not currently for sale. This is rumors and speculation. So they throw a little fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there. And they also will not be shown to be lying if and when in 2 weeks or a month the team is up for sale. Like, because that's the future. That's not the present. So I don't think it's confusing. I think I've sat in these meetings with like execs and PR and trying to figure out how we're going to spin this to make sure we maximize the message we want and minimize the message that we don't. I think it's a well-crafted statement. It's working for at least some of the fan base. That's not what we're going to do here. We're going to go based off of what our instincts are and our experience and what we think is going to happen as a result.
Yeah, and I honestly feel pretty bad for the Seahawks PR staff. They do such a good job. And like I saw John McClain put out a tweet last week. For those who don't know John McClain, he's one of the oldest, most respected NFL writers from Houston and Tennessee. And he just put out a tweet celebrating Dave Pearson. I didn't even realize Dave Pearson worked for the Oilers and the Titans and his background. And like those guys do such a good job. And to throw this curveball at them right when they're preparing for Super Bowl week and they're going to have to deal with this story lingering, I feel so bad for those guys. That's just such a frustrating part. But yeah, I'm completely with you. Everyone who's been in the corporate PR knows, like, even if you've watched Succession before the show, and that makes a mockery of this, but those are the kind of things that happen in boardrooms where you have these big companies and they're trying to figure out how do we make this sound good. And I think there'd be a million reporters jumping on the story if there was a falsehood right now, and they'd be doing everything they could to trash this. I think that's just the job of a corporate communications division at a pretty high level. And again, I feel bad for the Seahawks PR who have the busiest week of the year coming up, and this just gets thrown on their lap. So I feel really bad for those guys.
Yeah. Another thing that we should clarify for people that, don't follow this as closely as we do. I mean, John Schneider was just extended before the season. Mike McDonald is under I think he's a huge contract. Like
I think he has a 6-year contract.
Yeah, it was a really long contract when he signed. So, first of all, it'd be the stupidest thing in the world if you buy a Super Bowl team and you're like, fire the GM and fire the coach. Like, I mean, you'd have to be an absolute idiot. But that's just to be clear. I don't think this is a threat for those two guys at all. And another thing I'd add that would be something I would want from a new owner that you might not get from this current ownership situation is this Clint Kubiak moment. Now, I don't think it'll happen soon enough to affect it, but owners there's no salary cap on coaches. If an owner's like, hey, having Clint Kubiak here is our advantage, I'll give him an extra $5 million or whatever to keep him around. That's something that owners can do. It's just money, and it's a way that you can help win by being willing. You can actually pay for larger coaching staffs. You can have more people on the coaching staff. You have more people, more scouts. Like, there's ways you can spend money to improve your team without, again, that's a way you amplify what's working as opposed to changing it all.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just an unusual situation because usually when there's an ownership change, it's been with a lot of unstable franchises, and they've had to come in and clean up, and they just have not been able to effectively do it. And we haven't seen, obviously when the Cowboys got bought and they hired Jimmy Johnson, and they that was great. And then Jerry got too much ego, and look what's happened to them for 30 years. But there aren't a lot of examples where ownership comes in and they're handed a situation like this with the executive of the year, one of the brightest young coaches in the league. So they should be looking at amplifying. And this is where I hope that's part of the vetting of the franchise. I don't know how that works. That's beyond my pay grade or knowledge of how these businesses go. I don't know how much mergers and acquisitions are involved or anything like that. Probably not. But I would think that was what Jody and that group would want. just like Jody wanted the culture to stay the same. I imagine that would be really important to them. I don't know how much is determined by the highest bidder versus vetting how much you think it's a good fit. I don't know how that works, but I would think they would want someone who's going to keep everything they've built in place.
Yeah. And my understanding is there was a lot of thought and care put into the selection of who's going to buy the Blazers. I think there would be just as much thought and care, if not more, put into who's going to buy the Seahawks. So quick recap again. Report is that the Seahawks will be sold after the Super Bowl. That's the report from Seth Wickersham coming out of ESPN. And that the Paul G. Allen Foundation has not quite refuted that report, but has released a statement that they do not comment on rumors and speculation, and that while the team will be sold, as Paul Allen has wished, that the team is not currently for sale. There is space between those statements, as we've talked about. One does not refute the other. And the Seahawks, Jeff and I do not expect that the owner would move the Seahawks. That seems very, very unlikely. John Schneider, Mike McDonald are not going anywhere. They're under contract. John Schneider was just extended. And we don't know. Like there will be things to talk about this offseason potentially, and there'll be things for the organization to adjust to. And everyone is jumping to this being horrible, which is a little interesting to me. Like, that wasn't my first reaction. It was like, this is going to happen at some point. I've been thinking about this. We've been talking about this for a couple of years now. And I can see all the things we've talked about before about how this can be a good thing. So I'm not assuming that this is some like terrible thing. But I do understand why some people feel differently. So that's kind of where we are. And I don't know that there's much else to get onto it other than the timing is unfortunate.
Yeah. Let's go win the damn Super Bowl, because I don't want the Seahawks to go from losing the Super Bowl to losing Clint Kubiak to getting a new owner. That's going to be a scary place into a lot of uncertainty where, again, we're at the point where the Seahawks should be super stable right now. And they're probably still going to be stable. And that's why I want to talk to you, because I took it and I got very uncomfortable and nervous. And I started thinking about all the worst case scenarios. And you've calmed me down a little bit. But this, especially if the Allens are selling the franchise, let's go win the Super Bowl for Jody. Let's win the Super Bowl for what they've done for your city, for our team. Let's win the Super Bowl. And I'm guessing they're going to want to downplay this story and say we're focused on football, but how great would that be for them to win the Super Bowl if they're actually planning on selling this thing? And so it was great seeing them do. Why the hell did Fox not show her lift the flag on TV? That was so bad. I was so annoyed by that. I was like talking about the thing all week, and they showed like a replay, and they barely showed a minute of it. They didn't show Matt Hasselbeck or Averill and Bennett, but man, they got to win the Super Bowl now.
Yes.
There's too much uncertainty following. It seems like Clint Kubiak is gone unless he has a drastic change of heart. But look, Adam Schefter's been all over the place with this reporting, so who knows? But let's not focus on 2026 staffing yet. Let's go win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yes, that's the idea. Now, Jeff, I didn't sleep that well last night, I got to admit. But Valentine's Day is coming up, and there are these amazing pajamas, amazing sheets, but there's especially amazing pajamas. There's a special deal going on right now with Cozy Earth. And I told people this morning, I got a text from Jeffrey Dean Morgan that he wears his Cozy Earth pajamas every day. So I'm looking forward to getting a pair of these and trying them out. But right now, if you use code HAWKBOGO, HAWKBOGO at CozyEarth.com, you can get buy one, get one free of these Cozy Earth pajamas. Hopefully it'll help you sleep during even when there's a potential sale of your favorite team. So take advantage while you can. They are with us all the way through the Super Bowl, and a special deal. Take care of your Valentine's Day now. Why do you have to think about it later? Deal with it now. And the last thing I guess I will say, there's a few super chats. I'm not going to do all of these because some of them cross the line for me about what I want to put up here. Let's put a couple of these up here. Jeremy says, what does this do to our ability to sign pending free agents like K9, Reek, Kobe in the offseason? We didn't talk about cash budget.
Yeah. I alluded to it earlier.
like, so the salary cap doesn't care who your owner is or how much money they have, but the cash budget does. Say a little bit more about what a cash budget can do for you as an advantage, Jeff.
So this has been something that's kind of been a question mark of this regime for a couple of years. So there's a difference between cap and cash. And cap is an accounting, salary cap's an accounting technique. We always talk about restructuring and how do you balance the first year cap hit, but there still is a level of cash that goes out. And when a contract goes out, and Evan talks about this a lot, they have to pay a large chunk of the signing bonus up front. And the Seahawks brought in a new cap guy to structure how they do deals a little bit differently with more void years. But one of the questions of the Seahawks, and Brady Henderson has done a lot of reporting on this when there's been talks of trades or adding big name free agents towards the end of the year where John's holding cap room back, is the Seahawks apparently have been given an annual cash budget that they have to stick to. And that may have prevented them from making some trades or some signings that may have helped them. Because again, when you make a big trade or a big signing, you have to pay that budget, the cash, literal cash, up front. And if you have a cash budget, you have to factor that in. So, for example, the Raiders, for years, there have been questions about whether how much cash they literally have, because it's not a rich guy who owned the team. It's the son of Al Davis, and how liquid is their actual assets. It might just all be in the football operation. So it's a big deal if someone could come in who has a more cash flow business other than the football team and it is able to still manipulate the salary cap in the way Joey Lane and John Schneider have been, with the ability to actually do more moves. So say you're making a trade like a Max Crosby or someone of that, where there is a big cash outlay. A new owner could help in that front. And I don't know. I know the Seahawks are going up for sale after the Super Bowl. If this report is true, we don't know how long that process would take or how quickly that would be. So this could linger for months. But if this gets turned around, that could dramatically impact how they address free agency, how they address trades, if they get a more cash-rich kind of ownership group.
Good stuff there. We've got this from iSoul. Says, we all knew this was coming and it was going to happen at some point. I just wish the news didn't break before the Super Bowl. Wish it happened after. Yep. I think
that's so well said.
That's where we are. Detail Oriented says, Brian, right now the team is owned by the Paul Allen Foundation, but I read at one point that Jody could buy it herself to where she and not the foundation is the owner. Is that a possibility? It's an interesting question. I mean, probably. I don't know that this is what she's going to do or not, but that would be great if that happened. I would certainly be happy about that. It doesn't feel like that's probably like, I don't think the team would go up for sale for then her to buy it. I think they would just announce that the team has been transferred from the, it feels like an odd way for them to make that happen. All right. Next one here. Sebastian says, not even into week 2 of Super Bowl week, and it's already a nightmare. What a mess of what's supposed to be such an exciting lead up to the game. I don't know. I see people feeling that way. I don't. That's not my feeling, but I get it. This is from Brady. Crimmin says, let's break out the Patreon dollars and make a bid. Yeah. Let's start a GoFundMe. We can raise a few $1,000 and see if they'll take it. Let's see. This is Tree Lord Go Hawks. Wouldn't surprise me if she gave a time frame to John and said, if we can be stable by X time, I'll move on. Sell it to the fans like Packers, like the Packers. I don't think that's going to happen.
That seems optimistic.
It would be great. There's another one for that. Medic Bird says, turn the Hawks into the second publicly owned team. Give it to the 12s. That would be awesome. And then Brian Henderson says, wouldn't Jeff Bezos be good considering how much money he has versus the other owners? What they may not have as much. Like, that's why, like, I without getting into all the other things about Jeff Bezos, like, it was a competitive advantage that Paul Allen had as much money as he did. Like, he dwarfed the other NFL owners, and he flaunted it. Like, he put it all into winning, and in the right hands, having a very wealthy owner can be a really good thing. So I'm not going to put the next one up there. This is from Rodney. Says, why doesn't the city of Seattle buy them? Because the city of Seattle does not have that kind of scratch. Neo Pangea says, Jody is the reason McDonald can say we did not care. No Jets coach gets that. Hope the next owner protects the narrative tropes of the moment. Johnny Rowett says, please let the new owners possess the winning trifecta of deep pockets, care about the team, and stay away at the football stuff. Yep, I think we agree with you there. Mark Sanchez says fans are worried because of PSD from the Sonics. Sorry, folks, I don't have PSD. I'm a Blazers fan. Bow Hunter. Am I the only one that wishes Tyler Lockett could have stayed one more year and got a ring? That is an odd super chat for this particular show. I think there are other people that feel that way, but I don't know what that has to do with the sale of the team. So
I respect the discipline towards the Super Bowl game.
Yes. So I think we'll leave it there, Jeff. Any last comments from you?
No. I think we're all going to be spending our time on social media and trying to see what else comes out about this, but I'm guessing we'll get more information next week. The amount of reporters in one area around the team, they'll probably be strategic what they want out there. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of reporting on this over the next week. So keep your eyes open. I'm sure we'll do more stories if we get you're going to be down there, so you might have more information on this. But yeah, I'm sure like everyone else, we're all going to be following the same stories, and hopefully more information crystallizes next week that makes us a little less fearful, a little more certain, and hopefully we can all kind of take a deep breath and just focus on the game.
Awesome. Jeff, you can hang around 1 minute. We'll talk. Everyone else, have a great rest of your day. And Jeff and I will be back for Seahawks Saturday tomorrow to actually talk football. Until then, have a great Friday.